The sky fell in shades of gray and orange, painted by the death of a world. Chancellor Yurexa watched the feed from the high orbital stations, her claws digging deep into the console. The Cathari were the plague that burned 17 civilizations. Now they had come for Varith Prime. No warning, no declaration, no mercy. They expected an execution. Instead, they got a lesson. If you want to know what happens when the galaxy's monsters decide to act like heroes, keep listening. Yurexa slammed her hand onto the emergency release. The ancient, scratched beacon hummed beneath her claws, pulsing with a sudden, sharp heat. "Vin," she barked, not looking away from the burning horizon. "Is the signal out?" Vin tapped the interface, his hands trembling. "It's out, Chancellor, but it's not to the Alliance. It's to the quarantine zone." Yurexa felt her breath hitch. The quarantine zone held the race the galaxy had locked away 10,000 years ago. They were the monsters the rest of the stars feared, the ones who had been bribed to stay inside their own borders with vast tracts of empty space. Now, their gate was open. "We have 600 ships in orbit," Vin whispered, his eyes fixed on the scanner. "The Veloxi have no soldiers, we have no defense, we are just waiting to die." The chamber shook as a kinetic shell struck the planetary shield. The lights flickered and died, leaving them in the warm, pulsing glow of the beacon. The Cathari fleet sat in the upper atmosphere, a vast web of dark metal and hungry cannons. "They are moving to land," Yurexa said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "They want the bioluminescent forests." "They don't know what they've summoned," Vin replied. In the cold dark of the deep void, a fracture opened in reality. 200 ships emerged from fold space in a silent, perfect wedge. They were not sleek or ornate like the Cathari cruisers. They were blocks of raw iron and dense plating, smelling of ancient fuel and recycled air. Admiral Helena Jang sat in her command chair on the lead vessel, the Terran Response. She watched the Cathari fleet through the tactical display. Beside her sat a cup of tea, still steaming. Her eyes scanned the room like a radar, calm and predatory. "They aren't signaling us, Admiral," the communications officer reported. "They are burning their engines, preparing to land ground forces." Jang leaned forward. "They have 600 ships, we have 200. "Correction, Admiral. We have 200 crews who volunteered to miss dinner for this." Jang smiled, a thin, sharp line. "Let's remind them why we were put in the box." The human fleet did not move to engage the enemy's formation. They moved to dismantle it. The first salvo from the Terran Response was not a broad beam of light, but a series of precise, microsecond kinetic strikes that shattered the flagship's main thrusters. The Cathari formation wavered. "Don't trade fire," Jang commanded. "Isolate, exhaust, consume." The human ships moved like wolves, breaking the Cathari fleet into small, isolated pockets. They did not aim to destroy everything at once. They aimed to tire the enemy, to force them to waste their fuel, to break their focus. The Cathari, arrogant and unused to resistance, began to panic. They fired blindly into the dark, striking their own allies. "Sir, the Cathari are collapsing," a bridge officer noted. "Keep the pressure," Jang said. "Don't let them stabilize." On the surface of Varith Prime, the Cathari ground forces met a different kind of horror. Sergeant Chen's Marines dropped from high orbit in pods that hit the ground like meteors. They did not shout. They did not use energy weapons that lit up the sky. They used kinetic slugs and persistence, a biological, social, and tactical doctrine that left the Cathari confused and broken. The Marines moved forward, always forward. When the Cathari took cover, the humans waited. When the Cathari fired, the humans moved. They didn't run, they marched. It was a rhythm of slaughter that eroded the invaders' morale faster than any bomb. The Cathari warriors, 4 meters tall and covered in thick scales, found themselves outclassed by creatures half their size who simply refused to be afraid. Vex Torek stood on the bridge of the Void Reaper, his hand gripping his command staff. His fleet was falling apart. The humans were not fighting a war, they were hunting. "Find the flagship," he roared. "Focus all fire on the lead vessel." His officers scrambled, but the feed from the bridge was cut. A screen blinked to life. Admiral Helena Jang sat in her chair, holding her tea. Behind her, the tactical map showed every Cathari ship flickering out of existence. "Commander Vex Torek," Jang said. Her voice was flat, devoid of aggression. "Your empire's survival has reached its term." Vex Torek gripped his staff until the wood groaned. "We will not surrender to ghosts." "You aren't fighting ghosts," Jang said. "You're fighting the people who taught the galaxy how to survive." The Void Reaper suddenly shuddered. The humans had breached the hull without a single explosion. They had boarded the flagship, moving through the ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels like ghosts, disabling the reactors before the Cathari even knew they were inside. Jang's face remained calm. "We evolved as monsters, persistence predators. We are very good at killing, Commander, but we spent 10,000 years learning how to be guardians instead." Vex Torek looked at his crew. They were staring at the screens, their weapons lowered, their eyes wide with the realization that they were already dead. They just hadn't been told yet. "Surrender," Jang ordered. Vex Torek dropped his staff. He felt his knees hit the floor. The arrogance that had fueled his conquests vanished, replaced by the crushing weight of being prey. He watched the screen as the human ships hovered over Varith Prime, glowing in the soft light of the Death World. They didn't burn the city. They didn't execute the survivors. They began to deploy aid. Jang's Marines emerged from the ships, not with rifles raised, but with crates of rations and medical kits for the Veloxi. The sight of the human monsters handing food to the Veloxi children, their heavy armor caked in the grime of a brutal, efficient war, was more terrifying to Vex Torek than any weapon. "Why?" Vex Torek whispered, his voice cracking. "You could have destroyed us." "Mercy is a choice," Jang replied, her voice echoing through the silent bridge. "It is a choice that only the strong can make." The fires on Varith Prime died down. The human fleet remained, an iron wall between the Veloxi and the rest of the galaxy. Eurexa stood in her chamber, watching the humans move through the streets. She saw the beacon lying silent on her console. It had been heavier than it looked, carrying the weight of a terrible decision. Now it was cold. It was no longer a call for help, but a bridge. The galaxy had spent 10,000 years fearing the humans, trying to keep them locked away in the dark. They had called them monsters. They had built walls. They had created legends of human cruelty to keep their children in line. But as Eurexa watched, a human marine knelt to fix a broken floral lattice in the square, his massive hands moving with surprising care. The monsters had come to Varith Prime, and they had chosen to be heroes instead. The beacon lay silent. The galaxy had finally listened to the sound of our survival.